Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Luke with Luke F1 Fantasy. It's been a while since I did my last video, but here we are again. Free practice 1, free practice 2 is in the bag, so let's jump right in. All right, so in summary then, basically McLaren have returned to the top of the timesheet. So Lando looking great in free practice 2. His car driven by the rookie. Alex Dunn in free practice 1 also performed quite well under him. So the team has learned a lot. And Oscar also looking pretty fast as well. Mercedes are up there as well with them, definitely looking like they are fast as well. Post free practices, Russell and the team sort of downplayed their chances to win the race, but they're certainly looking at maybe sneaking a podium, definitely in the top 5. So Mercedes are happy with where they are at right now. Red Bull also closely behind, mainly because of Max's performances, getting the the third best time in free practice 2. But Yuki not too far behind, definitely showing that he's become more comfortable in that car. And to put it on P7 in free practice 2. So if he can put it together on a Saturday and Sunday during crunch time, I think some Red Bull fans and definitely some Yuki owners will be feeling quite happy about their choices if that's the case. Ferrari, though, and this is one for me being a Ferrari owner, they are looking like they are lagging quite far behind, and they are chasing the top 3, if not, struggling to stay ahead of some of the back markers, including Aston and Williams. So Ferrari, even though they've brought a lot of upgrades and they don't feel like they've upset the car too much, it just looks as if they are lacking in a lot of raw pace, especially in their qualifying. Also, from a qualifying perspective, 1 lap pace for Aston Martin looking mightily quick, looking like the best of the rest out of the midfield. Lance Stroll actually getting the quicker time out of the 2 drivers. So that is interesting. So if he can find a little bit of form in this mid-season, Alonso can extract some performance out of the car. Aston Martin could be a popular pick. As well as we have our usual suspects, Haas in the slow Haas in 1 lap pace, but certainly seem to pull it together in the race at times. So that's kind of where we are sitting for the qualifying. Now, when we look at the race simulation pace, again, McLaren look like they're going to top it. Again, followed by Mercedes, Red Bull dropping off a little bit, Ferrari coming a bit more closer to the top 3 as opposed to falling back towards the midfield. So looks as if Ferrari could also be kind on their tyres. But yeah, Aston Martin still sort of holding strong over the rest of the field. Not too much change there. Sort of Alpine sort of dropping to the back, and you see again Haas dropping up, raising a couple places, indicating the power of their race pace. So that is sort of where we stand. We're kind of like, probably expecting where McLaren were to be. We're getting some confidence that Mercedes are going to be able to back up their performance in Canada. Certainly as a comparison just to Ferrari on their own, it look as if they are quite strong for that move. But sort of remains to see whether Mercedes or George can beat Max and Red Bull around Austria once again. Although, as we know, Russell did really well here last year. Got fortunate with the win, but he did take the win itself. Looking into the corners, what's kind of interesting to kind of see just sort of like where teams are gaining and losing against others, and obviously McLaren dominating sort of all teams in all corners, but on the straights giving up some speed to Ferrari and Red Bull. So who knows, maybe Ferrari could dial up their engine a bit more and kind of get a bit more closer to the other teams by turning up their high, their top end speed. But who knows whether that disrupts the car a little bit more. But yeah, Aston, this graph really does show the power of where Aston are gaining. Like they are second best team by a long way in the slow corners. Third best team in the medium corners, and then still sort of top 6 in the high speeds. And then looking at the straights, they are the third fastest team with just beating McLaren as well. So they still are a ways off from sort of like obviously the top 4 teams, but the gap to the rest of the field looks quite significant. So it could be that kind of one thing last week is the data was all saying to go with Mercedes, but we looked at it all and decided not to take it and go with the Lando Norris feel and the vibes, even though that data looked good as well. But one of the reasons why they moved the Ferrari to Mercedes last week was not wanting to take a -10. But thinking about that this week, I'm thinking that there are some situations where actually taking a -10 might be the right move to make. So just sort of going to quickly remind ourselves of the budget builder. Obviously, Russell and Piastri leading the way. Top moves for your Tier A constructors. Budget-wise, sort of looking at Norris and Verstappen to be moved out, but there could be situations where you want to leave them in. Tier B drivers, Hulk, Alonso, they are just must-haves for this week, especially for teams. As again, we're getting closer and closer to a 4A build, everyone. So we need to, this is another good week where budget building is strong, and you don't want to lose to the field. So Hulk and Alonso just have to be part of our teams for every team. So if you have one, get the other one. If you have 0, get them both. And then, we'll talk about them through team selections. But Gasly, Bortoleto, Hadjar, Colapinto, Sainz, they all have their merits. You'll be changing them you'll be putting them in based on how many transfers you have, what your long-term structure of your team is going to be. Probably right up and through through Silverstone, through to Spa. But I'm just not seeing enough from Ocon, Behrman, Tsunoda, Lawson, Antilles, Scholl, Albon. I think I'm not going to talk about this in this week's video. We'll try to kind of keep things a little bit short to what we actually are going to do. And then in constructors, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull. Again, we'll come to those in team selection, but they all are going to see a price increase this week of max 0.3. So nothing to worry about there. But from the Tier Bs, Kick and Aston, I think we're just looking at those. If you're going to go with the Tier B constructor, I think we're sticking at Kick and Aston for this week based on what you have in your team. Okay, so let's go with my team then. So here I am. Here I am. This is the team that we need to fix. So off the bat, I definitely want to move Lawson out. And I have a decision to make whether who's the next bigger priority. Is it Ferrari or Lando? And some of this will depend on sort of FP3 tomorrow. But based on today, I would consider Ferrari the bigger priority out of my team. So looking at the 2 transfers, I think, like I said, I need to put Hulkenberg into the team. So he goes in first, and then I wait to see what I have left. And I have 28.6, and that kind of for me a Red Bull or Mercedes. So if I felt like Max was actually likely to win the race, get pole, I'll put him in. The difficulty is knowing if I'm going to keep Mercedes for 2 weeks. So I don't like them as much as Mercedes. I think sort of seeing just generally their package, how strong they are. They have another good performance in Austria when it actually is going to get hotter over the weekend. Then I can kind of think we can sort of put some of those concerns to bed about Mercedes and just think, they've got a quick car at this point in the season. So I do see Mercedes as being a longer-term hold. So this is a very sort of somewhat safe play. There's a slight differential just because you have Lando as your 2X. But generally, I think even Piastri owner teams, especially the good ones with Mercedes, they're going to have this team. So you're not going to sort of lose out too much against that. So now for the Piastri owners who went with the sort of Ferrari Hulkenberg move last week, you may have only used one move to actually just bring in Hulkenberg. And so you could be sitting with 3 transfers. Now, if you have 3 transfers with this type of team, I think your 2 clear ones, obviously moving out Lawson and Ferrari again. And I think you would go for that Mercedes. Then you have, potentially, anywhere between, 8 to 14.8 million, like I do here, to sort of fit in another driver, which I think you have multiple options here. It kind of just depends on which one you think is going to be a good pick. We do have, you could, well, actually, you know what? All you'd do is you'd be putting Alonso in because that's your biggest one that you're going to put. that you're going to put in. So there's your two moves. You can carry another third move onto Silverstone, where you may find value in that, just to kind of change your team around, especially if you're looking to get into sort of an Antonelli or Russell build with here. If you were to make a third move, again, you could move out one of Hadjar and Colapinto. The problem is, I do see most of these as the same sort of sideways move. I think Bortoleto to Gasly or Hadjar, Colapinto signs, interchanging one for the other. I likely think it's a sideways move. You may get a few extra points, but I think largely the budget potential is going to remain slightly the same. You will add in the risk of losing budget by by moving around to assets that are way above the 4.5 million. So if you were to use that third transfer, and you wanted to move one of Hadjar or Colapinto out, maybe you're not feeling Colapinto, then you could use that third transfer and whack in Bortoleto. Don't think that's a bad move for this week. You're not going to lose budget from having him in your team. He has a chance of getting a price increase. The car looks pretty good. And even if he doesn't increase in price this week, then you get to hold him for next week. And because he is at 4.5 million, you're just able to make your budget work a little bit more for you. But as a Norris owner like I am, I think where I am leaning with my team, having sort of explored where the Piastri teams are going, like Piastri teams, I think the Meta Piastri team are the ones that are going to be challenging or strong teams for the next couple of weeks, is the Piastri Mercedes builds. Now, whether that's just with the constructor or whether they're able to sneak in an Antonelli or Russell, I think that's the team that I'm sort of playing up against, sort of around me in the global rankings. And so last week, I think one of the reasons why I went with the Norris route is I was playing the sims in the sense that I was trying to get the highest sim score. But having some reflection, I'm looking at it and thinking, well, I just need to beat the teams around me. Like certainly, be in front of the teams that are behind me in the league standings, as well as look for opportunities but not deviate too much from the teams above me. And I think that's why I went with that Norris route, because that gave me that slight differential. And so Lando looking great this week, I'm kind of thinking, yes, he might lose me some budget, but out of the drivers on the field that are likely to score the most points this weekend, he is in the top two of the top three of who's going to do that. And so I feel okay keeping him in the team, but I don't want to lose out on other assets that are going to put me behind other teams. And so by that, what I mean is I still want to get Nico Hulkenberg into this team, and I want to maximize, but I also want to maximize my points either from a constructor or another driver. Now, this is my favorite team if I am looking to make 3 transfers and likely take a -10 for this hit. I would have to bring in, I have to take out Lawson, Ferrari, and Hadjar to be able to afford Piastri, Hulkenberg, and Aston Martin into this team. 3 assets that are likely going to increase by their maximum. 0.3 for Piastri, 0.6 for Hulkenberg, 0.6 for Aston Martin. So I'm back into position where I'm competing against the Piastri teams, which are going to have Hulkenberg. So I'm kind of like equaling them out there. Stand to gain a few more extra point budgets from Aston Martin over their Ferrari and Mercedes builds. And I get some exposure to McLaren on a weekend where they're looking strong for a 1-2. And I do like considering a triple McLaren build on a week where, when I consider the meta of other teams, with most of the teams having Ferrari or Mercedes, then I do like it when Max is the top driver outside of the top 2 McLarens, which is kind of what we've seen in F3 Practice 2. That just means that Ferrari and Mercedes aren't going to maximize their points on each other. So if you pick one or the other, they're not going to they're basically, Red Bull is basically, avoiding that ceiling, that mistake that you can make. So, which also then helps sort of split the points between like other midfield teams like Aston and Williams. So, from a time when we're looking at like if budget building is looking quite easy for certain assets this week, then I do like sort of an alternate strategy like this, as opposed to maybe making more of a safer move where I'm just bringing in Hulk and Mercedes, but I'm sticking with Lando. I still like having the exposure to Piastri in teams like this, which also gives me the thing of option of even running this in Silverstone next week. Lando probably still looks like he could lose a little bit if he doesn't do great, but I think he would be okay for Silverstone. And I could see myself, even just like making one transfer next week and maybe swapping out Colapinto, putting that money towards someone else, maybe a Bortoletto, bringing him in next week. I would actually do that this week if I wanted to take an extra transfer for -10, but I think -20 is a bit too much for this team, so I would just sort of keep that and just sort of save that transfer for next week. So I don't mind taking the -10 this week. I should have taken the -10 last week to bring in Mercedes. So based on that note, I was going to take -10 at some point, or I may have done it last week. So I'm maybe going to think about rolling the dice and doing it for this week. So still going to wait for the sim, still going to wait for Free Practice 3. But as far as 3 transfer teams go, this one is one of my favorites. If you don't have the ability to do this, obviously you know that you can always sort of downgrade from an Aston into a Kick Sauber. That would kind of be my first move to sort of prioritize getting Piastri in. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there and call it a wrap on this video. But in summary, what you should take from this video is if you were a Norris owner, I think it's safe to hold him. Just make some smart changes, get the big budget rises in there. I think you'll find you'll be okay this week. If you're a Piastri owner, I think your moves are just stable. You've probably got 3 transfers sort of in your back pocket. Just sort of tweak the edges, bring in Alonso, maybe switch to Mercedes if you're the Ferrari owner. You're going to be fine with those moves. If you are someone that is just feeling that they want to just change their structure, wildcard is an option for you. I do think the -10 builds are decent enough that you could run them and not feel too much pain. But certainly if you're missing out on Hulkenberg and Alonso, I think wildcard is a strong one for you to sort of just make sure the structure of your team is well. And yeah, when you're thinking about that sort of like 3rd or 4th B-tier driver, and you're maybe looking at the Sainzes, the Yukis, the Ollie Behrmans, I would say definitely you can pick those. They could work out for you, but if they just don't work out for you, just know that you're probably going to have to transfer them out again next week because they're not slam dunk holds for next week. So when you are making that last B-tier driver, just think about, I would say maybe give it a little bit more weight towards someone that you're going to keep for 2 weeks, potentially someone that's not going to lose you too much budget, i.e. Bortoletto, maybe sticking with Colapinto as well. So yeah, look forward to the sims in the morning. Check out the teams that you're looking at. Yeah, if those teams taking a -10 is going to score you 10 more points than your other team, then I think it's definitely worth it. So catch me tomorrow on X, where I'll be posting my final team a little bit before qualifying lock in. Enjoy the race, and we'll catch you on the other end.